type of player. LaMarcus Aldridge this year showed he's a better defensive player than Karl Anthony Towns, at least for now. I think he sure showed that you can win games with him, right, as your best player. In this case, he's your third best player, right?
Wonderful, right?
Yeah. So I think Tom Thibodeau looks at this and he loves it. The Timberwolves organization is taking a huge risk because Jimmy Butler and Kawhi Leonard are going to be free agents next year, or they'll have the option to opt out, which they'll obviously do. I see a place where the Timberwolves, with Kawhi Leonard and Jimmy Butler, decide they like playing together, and they can play together, and they can win games together on this team. I do wonder what the relationship between LaMarcus Aldridge and Kawhi Leonard is. I've never heard it being great. I don't know if it's terrible. I mean, I don't know if it's not, from what I've read, it's not what's causing the issues right now.
I can't imagine because there's been nothing about that come out. That Aldridge has stayed pretty quiet about the situation, unlike Parker, Danny Green, but Danny Green's had nothing but positives to say so far about Kawhi. But yeah, there hasn't been much of a rift from what I haven't heard anything about much of a rift.
I think there is some things to say that Kawhi's a little bit upset that he got that obviously he didn't play this year, but that LaMarcus got so much. The offense was so much centered about LaMarcus. I don't know if Kawhi wants to come back into a type of situation. But that being said, I still think the Timberwolves like the deal, at least for now. I think Tom Thibodeau, who I still believe is making decisions as a general manager, I think he's the only one that's left doing that. I think he looks at that deal and he loves it as a way that this is his way of being able to win a championship. The Toronto Raptors, I think...
they get their hometown kid.
But he's bad.
He is bad, but
he's got maybe because he has, like, he shouldn't be a bad defender, right? He's athletic. He can jump. He's tall. He's long. He's fast. He shouldn't be a bad defender.
Yeah.
Right?
This is a rumored trade that's been rumored pretty highly, is at least speculated, is that DeMar DeRozan for Andrew Wiggins trade. Obviously, with Toronto receiving more things. It's been highly rumored not highly rumored, I should say, but a lot of speculation that would be a trade that would work for both teams.
And I think Toronto has to make a move. And getting a young guy who hasn't shown his full potential yet might be the right move, especially since he is a Canada guy, right? He's a Toronto guy. So I think, if you are the Raptors and you're thinking of your long-term future, you're not going to win with your team now. You're probably not going to come out of the East with how good the East is going to be soon.
And they got some nice young players on that team. With this scenario, obviously they re-signed Van Fleet. They got Pascal Siakam, Jakob Poeltl. They got OG Anunoby. They got those young players they have on that team really did get them to where they were this year.
Yeah. Now, I will talk about the Spurs perspective here, and getting Karl Anthony Towns, yes.
You don't get a better package than that.
Yeah. I think, working with Greg Popovich, you hopes that finally you can take all that talent that's within Karl Anthony Towns and just unleash it onto the NBA. Maybe not Anthony Davis, but maybe a little bit worse than Anthony Davis because he's got the same skills as Anthony Davis.
Maybe even better offensively than Anthony Davis. Obviously not a better player overall, but I think he has the potential to be a better offensive player for Anthony Davis. He shoots that three-pointer at a high percentage. And he offensively, I think he could be unleashed to become a better player than Davis. Defensively, probably nowhere near. I mean, maybe not nowhere near.
But he's got the athletic capabilities to do it. I mean, the way I look at defense is 40% athleticism, 40% desired, and then 20% intelligence. He's got the athleticism, right?
Yes.
The desire can be improved, and he's not a dumb player. He's not as smart, I don't think, as Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis has a very high basketball IQ. But if you can improve his defense a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
And his offense, you unleash the offense, and I think, I trust Pop with any player to be able to get the best out of them. I think Pop has shown that consistently. I think the only coach that parallels with him there right now is Brad Stevens, and Brad Stevens hasn't done it for as long. I like that trade. DeMar DeRozan, yeah, he's a good player.
Well, that kind of covers. Yeah. It was essentially between. I mean, granted, and if Toronto's not a part of this trade, you take on Andrew Wiggins for the simple reason that you are getting Karl Anthony Towns. Now, yeah, but I just included Toronto in that trade because of the speculation that has been going around that a good trade that would make sense for Toronto
And the Spurs would prefer DeMar DeRozan.
Exactly. And that's why another reason why I added it. He covers the win now, as well as Karl Anthony Towns, and Karl Anthony Towns obviously covers anything more. The Spurs would not be able to ask for anything more in terms of their future potential in this trade than Karl Anthony Towns. Even though they're giving up, and for that reason, they're giving up 2 players and potentially taking on Gorgui Dieng's contract. And I'm pretty sure Minnesota would make that a stipulation. Like, if we're giving you Karl Anthony Towns, you take on Dieng. We're taking on Gasol's expiring contract, and that's it. Now, Gorgui Dieng is about 2 years removed from being a solid player. Maybe the Spurs could change it around, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean,
not even important.
If anyone's going to improve him as a player, it's not going to be Thibodeau. It's going to be Pop, right?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot in that trade. I'll mention my last one, which is my favorite. I think every team here is going to benefit. This trade only way it works is if DeMarcus Cousins resigns with the New Orleans Pelicans. He takes a little bit of a pay cut because he's not getting the offers out there, and he wants to play with his old Kentucky buddy John Wall. The way this works is the Wizards are going to get Kawhi Leonard and DeMarcus Cousins. The New Orleans Pelicans are going to get Otto Porter Jr. and a draft pick from the Wizards, which is probably a 2019 or a 2020 draft pick. And the Spurs get Bradley Beal and this year's draft pick of the Washington Wizards, which I believe is number 15.
I believe so as well, yeah.
Okay, the reason why I believe this works. The Wizards are taking on John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins is going to be signed on long term, so that is good. They're 2 friends. They gelled together. They played well together, right? Kawhi Leonard, you add him. You're taking away Kawhi Leonard from the Celtics. You're taking away Kawhi Leonard from the 76ers. You're making it harder on the Lakers to re-sign Kawhi Leonard next year. I think that Wizards team has every right to be able to compete in the East for the next year at least. They can come out of the East and win the championship, right? They still have Kelly Oubre, couldn't hit that 3. They have the Morris brother. They have Gortat off the bench. They have, what's the point guard's name? Whatever, the point guard with the long name. He can play well. He can provide...
Tomas Saforsky, who's not a point guard, but something
like
that, yeah.
So they have decent players, and you could probably sign, I believe you would have a mid-level exception, right?
Either the mid-level, the non-taxpayer...
You would probably get a Rudy Gay, right? I mean, I'm just throwing names out there. And I think, you get rid of the coach, you get John Calipari, and you go from there, right? I think that's a good team. The reason why I think it works for the Pelicans is I think the Pelicans, if they make that trade, they become the 3rd best team in the West. I already think that the Pelicans have the team that maybe next year they will be the 3rd best team in the West, just because Drew Holiday and Anthony Davis are still rather young. They finally figured out how to play well together. Now you get Otto Porter. You get this wing who can switch on defense, who can play defense, and he can score. He can shoot 3s. He's athletic. It really improves the team. For the Spurs get Bradley Beal, who's in 24, 25 years old. He can shoot. I think him and DeJounte Murray together are going to be a pretty good backcourt.
They complement each other very well, yes.
Because, even if DeJounte Murray is not turning the ball over, he's not running the offense well, Bradley Beal can play some of that point guard duties. I think that's a good backcourt. I think, if you think about it this way, you take last year's Spurs team, you add Bradley Beal. What exactly the Spurs needed? They needed a 3-point shooter. They needed someone who can score on his own. They needed someone who could run an offense. I think that improves the Spurs in that way. And that pick, again, the Spurs are a pretty good drafting team. This year's draft is pretty. There's some talent at the front end, and there's talent in the back end that I think the Spurs can make it useful. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so obviously, let's start with the Pelicans. The Pelicans, that trade, again, Otto Porter works for them, I think. If DeMarcus Cousins might want to leave at this point, and his injury history is, with this current injury, his status is uncertain, and it's hard to see the Pelicans turning it down simply because of the fact that they could get a younger player who might play with Anthony Davis a little better, but his health is not uncertain. And at this point, the Pelicans do not want to be taking any more risks because Anthony Davis' contract is slowly coming to an end. Very slowly. He's got 2 more years of guaranteed left plus 1 more. I believe it's a player option and a 3rd year. But it's slowly coming to an end, and you need to do something to make sure that that he stays there. So improve that team and make sure he stays there. Yes. Now, the Spurs, yes, Spurs are getting a great package from Bradley Beal, who is young, number 15 draft pick, which is great. Whatever else might be involved in this deal. And theoretically, the Wizards, now where the Wizards come in is they need to take this risk. And the reason why I say they really would need to take this risk is because of the fact that Wall's contract, his extension that he signed is absolutely ridiculous. I think after this upcoming season, he's got 5 years left on his contract, and he is going to be making, I think it's $200 million. So he's going to be averaging $40 million. Think about that. John Wall, in about 34, he's going to be making $46 million. So clearly the Wizards have to take some kind of risk, and it is worth for them to take this risk just because, let's say Kawhi Leonard leaves, DeMarcus Cousins doesn't work out, you are able to trade John Wall real quick, trade him to a team, and there will be a team willing to take that on. Now, you're not going to get much back, but if nothing works out, you real quickly trade John Wall. Trade him to a Milwaukee who might be able to take him on, which we probably will cover in a future episode, as I have some trade ideas with that, but we'll get into that in a future episode. And for that reason, you have to take that risk, and if it works out, you keep John Wall there, you extend Kawhi Leonard if he decides to resign, you keep DeMarcus Cousins, and you keep playing with that trio. And at that point, Wall's contract becomes a little more useful for that team because you're not signing any other free agents with Wall's ridiculous contract. So if it works, great. If it doesn't work, now you're able to retool. At this point, there's no reason if the Wizards stay with this same roster, they're not going to be more than a 5 seed next year. And beyond that, they're not going to have a lot of money just to spend with Otto Porter's and John Wall's contracts. Over the next 3 years, they're not going to have a lot of money. And when Otto Porter's contract expires, it's going to be too late to do anything around John Wall. So they're in a very difficult position at the point where they are probably the team that should be willing to take the highest risk this offseason. And they're the team that should be taking the highest risk with anything or any player this season. They should not be looking to shed salary like it's been reported. I'm not sure who reported that they're dangling their 15th pick to try to get rid of some salary, including Ian McKinney and Marcin Gortat. At this point, they should be looking at any scenario to acquire some type of superstar, as risky as it may be, because of the fact that they will not have a lot of potential in the future to do anything around Wall and Beal, anything more around Wall and Beal that they are now. Now, with this trade scenario, the only problem would be, and you acknowledge that DeMarcus Cousins, because of the fact that this would be a sign and trade, would have to take some type of pay cut because of base year compensation, which essentially states that if you're trading a player who is taking on more, whose new contract he's going to be earning more than 20% from his previous salary, you either count half of the incoming team, the team trading him, the incoming team, his full salary, his new salary counts for that team, but his old team trading him could only take on about half or his previous year's salary. Therefore, his previous salary is a little more than $18 million. So basically, his new contract would have to be around $21.5 million, or if it's more than $21.5 million, now the Pelicans cannot take on more than 125% of $18 million, which is about $22.5. Now, Porter's contract cost is about $25. Those salaries don't even out. So now that's why we made it clear specifically that DeMarcus Cousins would have to be willing to take for at least 3 years, $21.5 million. Now, DeMarcus Cousins, I don't know if he does that just because of the fact that he's DeMarcus Cousins. And even though he gets a chance to play with Walt and Kawhi Leonard, DeMarcus Cousins wants all of his money. However, he might not be willing to. Nobody else might be willing to give him that money because of this injury, like you acknowledge.
I think it depends on what the Mavericks do. If the Mavericks take a center in this draft, right? If they take a Bamba or a Jackson, they're not going to offer that money to